You've been living in a dream world, Neo. This is the world as it exists today.
Welcome to the Matrix on 103.5 The Light, WMUZ Detroit. And now here's your host, Chris Stevenson.
Well, good morning and welcome to The Matrix, and thanks for tuning in last week for our pilot show. All kinds of emails and Facebook posts coming in. We appreciate that. If you want to participate in The Matrix today, the direct studio line is 313-838-1035. You can post on our Facebook page or email us at WMUZ.com. I'm Chris and want to introduce our panel today. We have a full house, and let's start with Chris. Chris, can you tell us just a thumbnail sketch of what you're all about? Hi, Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
My name's Chris Wolf, and what's touched my life is the inspiration that has made this country great. And so we've taken inspirational stories from technology and healing and have made that a part of a support group. And so we are always sharing information every Monday night and excited to do so. And so I'm here to support my friends and to be available to share any information.
Chris, thanks so much for coming in today. And then we have John and Kathy Irvine. Morning, guys. How are you?
Great. How are you?
John, so just to tell us, how did you get involved in this?
I've always been involved in politics. Kathy and I were young Republicans, and we worked for Richard Nixon. We kind of call ourselves recovering Republicans. We're more libertarian now.
Yeah.
That's how we began.
What about you, Kathy?
Years ago, actually I was in the 8th grade, and I had a nun at the Catholic school that I went to, and she, instead of teaching us catechism every day, we learned about the John Birch Society and about communism. And actually she was a big inspiration in my life, because she warned us that we needed to watch what our children were learning in school, and that's why I got involved with Common Core.
Which we're going to talk about in just a little bit.
Yes.
And thanks so much for coming in today, Kathy. I appreciate it. And James Pirowich was here last week. Welcome back, James.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
All right. And Shane Trejo in the house, too. How you doing, Shane?
I'm doing good.
So what caught your attention? How did you get involved in this?
As a youngster, thank you. As a youngster, I saw the impact that the government policy was having on me and my fellow college students, and so I got involved in activism there, and now I'm involved with the 10th Amendment Center, which is a grassroots think tank that promotes nullification as a way for local and state communities to fight back against unconstitutional laws.
Okay. Shane, thanks for coming in today. And I want to start with some emails from last week. This is from June Hetmansky. It says, "Hi, Chris. Wow. Praise God for your new show. I've been informed for some time now and have been trying to inform others, but when someone who has an audience like you speaks out on these issues, it reaches so many more. You are trusted and respected within the Christian community, so I can see many people's eyes opening to the Matrix, or what I refer to as the Tower of Babel agenda. God bless you as you go forth. I'll be listening on Saturday morning. My hope is renewed again." And I want to ask our panel here, what happens when you bring up these subjects? Do they look at you, guys, and anyone can answer this, do they look at you like you have three heads, like you're from a different planet?
I think they used to but more now. They're coming around, and the more people you talk to are waking up. And there's Zbigniew Brzezinski of the Trilateral Commission calls the political awakening of the masses that's going on, and more people are realizing that something it's not as the government is telling you that things are going on.
Shane, pull that mic in just a little bit closer so we can hear what you're saying. That's good.
Okay.
And I want to go to Colleen Perry. She wrote an email. This is interesting. It says, "I just listened to your Matrix show and was shocked when I opened my email today. My husband and I recently bought into a gated Del Webb retirement community in South Carolina, about 7,000 homes with folks 55 years old and up. And here is what the email said. National Guard to perform training exercise in Sun City, Jasper County neighborhoods, a disaster response training exercise beginning at 9 a.m. Monday, May 20th. So this just happened in the Sun City neighborhoods in Jasper County. During this 8-hour exercise, soldiers, not police, but soldiers, will be going door to door to conduct a, quote, health and welfare check. If you do not wish to participate in the exercise, please tape the letter to your door before 9 a.m. on Monday, May 20th. And she says, really? With 5 question marks? I tried to download the letter several times, but it would not print. How convenient. I hope the letter would have a picture of Big Brother on it with a half-circle cross over it. Wow. So what do you think of that? What is this about? Why are soldiers marching up and down the street?
Well, it's a continuation of what was going on at the Boston Marathon bombing, where they're introducing the fear factor into our lives. It has to make us accustomed to rendering.
Well, wait a minute. What
assault.
happened to Posse Comitatus from 1878? It says the military shall not be used to police the civilian population.
There probably is a dozen laws and a dozen townships and counties in every state that have already pretty much null and voided that. There's a catchphrase. It's for the community good. They're there to help the community. They're there to enforce laws alongside of law enforcement.
All right, well, here's what happens to me. When I mention the New World Order, people say, well, number one, the FBI says it doesn't exist. I mean, they have training literature for their agents saying, listen, anyone who mentions this is an enemy of the state. They're a little touched. They're reading the internet a little bit too much. So let's go to this clip. Anyone who talks about the New World Order, you definitely want to stay away from them. Listen.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided, a world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict, Cold War. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order, a world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
And after 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
To shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order. Its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
The world that maybe some people dreamt of at that conference back in Bournemouth, when it looked as if maybe history would end, that liberal democracy would triumph, that free market economics would slowly progress, and we'd have a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged an experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new consensus as to how life should and could be lived.
Well, there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the United States and a fellow citizen of the world.
Well, I'm really glad that we cleared that up. The New World Order definitely does not exist.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to play a little trivia game here. Anyone recognize familiar voices in there?
Yes, I heard Kissinger.
Kissinger, right?
Our friend Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton. Who else?
George Bush.
Bush Sr. And Tony Blair.
Yep.
Right? Okay, so just no names. Crazy conspiracy theorists, and no one knows any of those people. And you say, well, that's ancient history, Chris. That's from 20 years ago. Do you have anything new? Well, what about this? Here's Joe Biden. Anybody know Joe Biden?
Vice President.
The Vice President. Oh, yeah. Here he is speaking to the Import-Export Bank last month, April of 2013. Listen.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order, because the global order is changing again. And the institutions and the rules that worked so well in the post-World War II era for decades, they need to be strengthened, and some have to be changed. So we have to do what we do best. We have to lead. We have to lead. We have to update the global rules of the road. We have to do it in a way that maximizes benefits for everyone, because obviously it's overwhelmingly in our interest. This is not a zero-sum game. It's overwhelmingly in our interest that China prosper, that Mongolia prosper, that nations big and large, east and west. We have to level the playing field so that American companies and workers can compete in the world, that the competition is fair and it's healthy.
Okay, and that's Joe Biden last month calling for the formation of a new world order. Everyone hear that? Or do I need to clean out my ears?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. They make it sound like it's a great thing. I mean, we don't want a concrete block and barbed wire fences. We want world peace set up by Jesus Christ for him to set up his millennial reign. Chris, can you speak to that?
Yes. When good men and women do nothing, evil prevails. And so when the family is challenged because they can't have a job that's stable, and because we've had NAFTA and GATT, and we have these different leaders and lobbyists that are controlling the outcome of the little guy, whether that's the farmer or manufacturer, then you also have management and you have unions fighting one another when they're not really looking at the core problem, and it's the money issue. Our money's been devaluated and our spending ability for families has been diminished greatly since we've been off the gold and silver standard and we've been over to a fiat money system where they're printing money. And we're, as a nation, we've seen agriculture and manufacture diminished greatly, and we're being lowered to a third world status. That means we're competing against slave labor, supporting countries that morally don't believe the same way our heritage in Christianity, Judeo-Christian principles. And it's causing a situation where we're enabling a situation that at some point in time we'll not be able to compete against these third world countries, therefore lowering our standard of living, not providing families and inventors and others the protection and the checks and balances that are required, because we have lobbyists that are pushing a different agenda and slowly moving us to this one world order.
Okay, well, let's pick it up right there after the break. We'll talk about NAFTA and GATT and how these trade agreements are affecting the economy here in America on The Matrix.
You're in The Matrix with Chris Stevenson on 103.5 WMUZ.
What is the Matrix? Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world, built to keep us under control.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Post your comments on Facebook. Email us at WMUZ.com or call the studio right now at 313-838-1035. The Matrix on 103.5 WMUZ Detroit. And now, here's Chris.
Okay, welcome back to The Matrix. 313-838-1035 is the studio line if you want to hop in The Matrix, if you have a comment on any of these topics. And before we get back to NAFTA and GATT and how these trade agreements are affecting the economy in America, I want to talk about the Council on Foreign Relations. Everyone familiar with the CFR?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so here's a quiz, class. Tell me about the CFR. John?
The Council of Foreign Relations? I don't really know what to say about it.
Okay, anybody? Panel? Guests?
The Council on Foreign Relations has been around for about 70 to 80 years.
Mhm.
And ever since then, we've seen more international, more role of the United States in international affairs, and not for the good. It's cost us a lot of money. It's got us into a lot of trouble. If we funded, dictators on their behalf. And, their agenda is the same agenda as the New World Order, same agenda as the Trilateral Commission. It's all about promoting, one world government. run by internationalists, run by bankers. No sovereignty for us. We don't decide what we do. It's decided by, a small elite group of internationalist bankers.
Well, when you hear the name Council on Foreign Relations, I mean, it sounds really official, doesn't it? Like when you hear the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I mean, that's an actual government committee. But Council on Foreign Relations sure sounds great. Sounds like it's a part of the government, doesn't it? But it's not. It's actually a private club. It says, just as the Federal Reserve, the name Council on Foreign Relations sounds official to the unsuspecting ear, and even they print a magazine called Foreign Affairs to help pacify the organization in the public's mind. But the truth is, the CFR is not a council belonging to the U.S. government and is, in fact, a secret society masquerading as an official organization. And Chester Ward was a U.S. Judge Advocate General of the Navy and CFR member for 16 years, and he said this is the purpose of the CFR: promoting disarmament and the submergence of U.S. sovereignty and national independence into an all-powerful one-world government. Do you think that's true or not?
I certainly do think it's true, and it's worth noting that going back to Carter, all the administrations have been filled with hundreds of members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Every administration has these, their top brass, in key parts of their cabinet and in their administrations.
Well, let me give you some of the names: George Bush, Bill Clinton, Hillary, Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, John F. Kennedy, Dwight Eisenhower, Herbert Hoover, Robert Kennedy, Al Gore, Condoleezza Rice, Jesse Jackson. Here's some of the corporate members: ABC News, American Express, Heinz, IBM, Lockheed Martin, MasterCard, Motorola, Visa, Verizon, Toyota, Time Warner, Sony, Shell Oil. So it sounds like anyone who's anyone is a part of the CFR, including celebrities like Warren Beatty and Oprah Winfrey. Did you know that, guys?
Well, they're all on board. There's a kind of an overview effect of this, that it has to kind of make it a massive cover-up while exercising these alphabet soup names right in the open.
All right,
right
so and how does all of this fit into the big picture? The bottom line is they want to level out the playing field, and that's where the North American Union, GATT, NAFTA, CAFTA come into the picture. So let me go back to this clip from Larry King Live. This is Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico.
What we proposed together, President Bush and myself, it's ALCA, which is a trade union for all of the Americas. And everything was running fluently until Hugo Chavez came. And he decided to isolate himself. He decided to combat the idea and destroy the idea. And very unfortunately,
it's going to be like the euro dollar, you mean?
Well, that would be long term. I think the process is to go first step into a trading agreement, and then further on, a new vision like we're trying to do with NAFTA.
Like we're trying to do with NAFTA. And here's a clip from Jerome Corsi, Dr. Jerome Corsi, who wrote a book called The Late Great USA. Anyone familiar with that? And the subtitle is The Coming Merger with Canada and Mexico. And this is what he said about the North American Union.
I mean, I was ready to send Vicente Fox a signed copy of the book and thank him because he validated every major thesis in the late great USA. We're headed exactly down the path Europe went down, starting with trade agreements, beginning with a coal and steel agreement in Europe 50 years ago, then advancing towards a European common market, the Treaty of Maastricht, the European Union, in 2002, the Euro. We're now going from NAFTA to the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America. Our elite are talking about a North American community, and they've even named our new currency the Amero.
There you go, guys. So let's get rid of the dollar and have a new currency for the North American Union, right? The merger between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and call it the Amero. John, would you speak to that?
Well, I think the Amero's been it's been discredited that it's not true, but definitely they've destroyed the manufacturing base of our country, and I think my report on the minimum wage shows that with inflation, the standard of living in this country is dropping like a rock. But it's happening at about 7.2% per year, so that people don't really realize it's like a frog in boiling water. They don't realize what's happening to them, that their average income is dropping. So it's just it's a long-term problem.
Chris, what do you think?
Well, yeah, he's correct. The situation is when when sharing information with people, when they're prospering and they're doing well and they're busy in their family life, they don't want to hear what's going on. But I can remember way back being a child and going to a movie with my family, and it was called The Hiding Place with Corrie ten Boom. The theaters were packed, and we had to sit separate from one another. That movie made such a profound effect on me, and I realized that, you know what, people were not paying attention in Germany. They didn't understand past history, and we're at that point today where people don't know their history. Their kids come home, and they're talking to their children, and they realize we really don't know our history. When they say the separation of church and state, it was the church that educated the people way back during the Founding Fathers and inspired people to get involved. In fact, some that were planning on being lawyers learned so much about biblical law and principles that some of them became ministers. And when we lose that salt and light, Scripture says, the salt has become no good, but to be trampled underfoot. We have lost the whole idea of critical thinking in this country and cause and effect. And a lot of the Israelites, when they moved away from the Lord, what happened? They got judged. They had a lot of the other surrounding countries come in and move in on them, and they were punished severely. What happens is we have to be looking out for our brother, and we have to be patient and keep dripping and educating, because what happens is they don't realize the rich history of this country. They don't realize how God intervened to give us this wonderful country. And what we should be doing is raising the standard in these third world countries instead of seeing them stay under slave labor, and then also enabling their countries to dictate ruthlessly at times. Sometimes it's our American corporations go in with the help of the CIA. I bet nobody knows that there was 9,000 private wars that the CIA was involved with. 9,000. That comes from John Stockwell, who was a former CIA. That's unbelievable. We've lost that accountability where each person needs to take responsibility at their post, which means their family and their community, getting involved and learning to, thank you.
Well, it's bread and circuses, a lot of distractions. Everyone's running around with their head tilted down, looking at the screen in front of them, which is their iPhone or their Droid or their BlackBerry. So we're not focused on what we should be focused on. We're focused on who's on Dancing with the Stars this week. James, are you going to say something?
Well, we're the last bastion of freedom in the world, and because of our history and how this country was founded, the safeguards put in place by the Founding Fathers, most of which, despite all the atheistic slants on it and slanders, really was the Ten Commandments, rule of law, allowing a country to form as a republic where people did have, and Washington himself said, if you do not have the sovereignty as an individual and get to own your land and have a government that protects that right, then you are not a free people anymore. And this is what's happened with especially financially with the tax thing. We have a 50% inheritance tax imposed on people starting this past January. What does that mean? That means if you're a farmer and you pass away and you leave say it has a net worth of $2 million or $10 million or $15 million for your farm, this farm now has to have a 50% tax paid on by the family, daughter, son, whoever may have inherited it, and that money is due within that tax calendar year. Now, it's a farm, it's land and dirt, it's a barn, it's equipment, most of which has been used. Now, this is to put you in a position where you have been forced to sell the collective family farm for whatever monies to come up with for the taxes and move away from it with any resource left. This is a land grab.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about last week, which is control. It's ultimately about control of every aspect of our lives. So let me flip the script and say this to Shane. Maybe this is a good idea. Tell me why the New World Order is a good idea, because they're saying, listen, we're the intellectual elite, we're the brightest and best, and the unwashed masses are incapable of managing themselves. So maybe we should have a one-world government and a totalitarian government.
But I mean, yeah, that's what they'll say. It's for international cooperation. That
it's world peace. World peace sounds great.
This is this is the natural way. This is the preferable way things should be done. People deciding their own lives. They can't. We're a bureaucracy of experts would have a better way of doing it than you would. But that hasn't worked. I mean, look at the amount of corruption coming from the federal government, from that centralized authority. Now imagine an entity with that much power, but over the whole world, how corrupt it would be. And these are supposed to be the best and brightest. They're graduated from the best universities, and they have not done a good job of managing things. Obviously.
Well, I heard once that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Looks like that might be true. All right, let's take a break. More of the Matrix is coming up.
You're in the Matrix with Chris Stevenson on 103.5 WMUZ.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
The Matrix on 103.5 WMUZ Detroit. And now, here's Chris.
All right, thanks for joining us on The Matrix today. 313-838-1035 is the phone number. You can post on Facebook or email us at WMUZ.com. And Kathy, let's get you involved. And your big passion is the education system, which is really the indoctrination system, and something that's called Common Core. So tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. It's a national curriculum standard and a federal program of data tracking personal information on students. And the original goal when it was implemented was to bring a uniform curriculum throughout the U.S. to align the educational system. And it was basically, I think it's really important to know how it was developed. It was.
Well, let me stop you for a minute, Kathy.
Sure.
Why would they be doing this? I mean, is this training up our children to be good, obedient citizens of the New World Order?
Definitely.
Okay, so how did it happen?
It's indoctrination education is what it is. Well, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they provided $35 million to a consortium of two non-government trade associations, and that was the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State Officers. And the purpose of this was to develop and implement a new educational system, and they called it the Common Core State Standard Initiative, and they published it in 2008. And then in February of 2009, President Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and he designated $4.5 billion executive earmark for the Department of Education. And they received the money with no strings attached. Then the Department of Education used this earmark to create and fund Race to the Top. And that was a federal grant that gave cash-strapped states the ability to compete for this money under the scheme that they had to, under the scheme, they had to actually commit to this program. And as a result of this scheme, there was no review done by the people or the legislators, and states were given 2 months to commit to this publication. And they
2 months, so they're always pushing it through very quickly, so there's really no time to review it or think about it.
And they didn't. I mean, they adopted sight unseen instructional standards for our kids.
Okay, so what can we do about this? How can we stand up and reverse this trend?
Well, right now in the state of Michigan, Tom McMillan, Representative McMillan, has an amendment that has already passed the House to defund it. And I believe it's this coming Tuesday. It's going to go through the Senate. And the Senate, it's really important that everybody call their senators to have this defunded. But unfortunately, it's only for 1 year. And after that, Tom McMillan has a bill to repeal it. I think it's also really important to know that the broader plan of this is the data tracking of the kids.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What are they doing to mine data from our children? How is that happening?
Well, what they're doing is it won't happen until 2014, and they're going to need tax dollars again. Estimated cost about $3.6 billion per state to the taxpayers. And anyway, this data will track test scores, health, immunizations, Social Security numbers, religious affiliations, voting status, blood types, bus stop times and arrivals, dwelling arrangements, hair and eye color.
Hey, Kathy, there was a story down in Texas about a family that was resisting these RFID cards that they wanted all of the students to carry. They couldn't get their lunches without it. They couldn't check books out of the library. What do you think of that?
Right, I think that's horrible. I mean, it's...
It's more control.
It's
really
more
just about more control, and it's starting at such an early age that it allows these kids to really feel like nothing's really wrong here. This is how I grew up. This is how I'm treated. It's really why the assault on the old fuddy-duddies, the Tea Party members, the Christian religious activists, the people that are aware and having their sixth sense tweaked by all these anomalies that seem so strange. And this is oppressing.
Well, you know what?
But kids won't feel that way. They'll be devoid of that.
Well, it goes beyond that, actually, because there's a club in Barcelona, Spain, and they don't want to make it just normal. They want to make it cool. There was a club where they said, hey, if you get implanted with a microchip, you can get into the VIP room and have access to areas of the club that no one else does. So they're making it fashionable to be tracked.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a call. Here's Kathy in Grand Blanc. Hey, Kathy, you're in the Matrix. Thanks for calling. What's going on? Kathy? Hi, Kathy. You're on the air. Go ahead. Uh-oh, no, Kathy. All right, so I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying? Kathy Irvine.
Oh, yes. Not only that, the Federal Department of Education in February of this year also said that they're going to implement new techniques to monitor students, and that's MRI brain mapping functions, cameras to judge their facial expressions, electric seats to judge their postures, pressurized computer mouse biometric wrist wraps, fingerprinting, iris patterns, voice prints, and DNA sequences.
Oh, smokes.
Sounds like Mengelo's gotten into the education system of America.
Yes, and all this data is going to be collected and placed in a national federal funded consortium, and it's a centralized database in alliance with Bill Gates and Inbloom. And a lot of this information is also going to be sold. I mean, merchandise, yes. So basically, it's
under that.
children for sale.
That's where that smart metering. That's where that merchandising, where they're looking for your needs and your wants, as well as guinea pig experiments and control at the same time, under the guise of the community good. And we're going to make we're telling you what you can drink, how much you can't eat, or your diets, your behavior, and all through the Health Care Act that starts really in full bloom this coming January, is all this electronic data being collected. The school nurse asking, Johnny, does Dad have a problem with home life? Does he seem irritable? Does he drink? Does he have guns? Yeah. Does your mother or you ever fear for your safety at home with Dad or Mom or the mom's boyfriend? There's all this intrusion, this assault on our privacy that is now going to be connected with healthcare reporting from the school nurse.
Well, don't forget, though, James, here's the thing, is that we are, according to them, the property of the state. The only reason for our existence is to serve the super police state. So we need to be monitored. We're a commodity to be managed, like cattle or sheep. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
All right, have a couple of phone lines ringing here. So let me pick this up. Hi, you're in the Matrix. Who's this?
Hi, this was Kathy. I got cut off. I'm the one that they were just going to have put on the air, but a history instructor who told me that they were taking the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the amendments out of the new history books because they felt like students didn't need to use it at community college level, and we're required to teach whatever textbooks they give us to teach.
Kathy, can you speak to that? They're changing the textbooks?
Yes, they are. All of the literature is being changed.
Besides all of the way that they're rewriting history, and this is from a history professor who's there. I teach a different subject.
So,
but,
Chris, you were talking about how we need to get back to the biblical principles of teaching our families, and that tradition is being erased from the history books. And so a couple of more generations, the kids are going to be like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. And I homeschooled my kids in history, and that's when I really learned from the Christian perspective and then I had, some of them went to public school, and they didn't get the whole Christian perspective. It is already slanted, and they're making it even worse. It's more written, this history professor was telling me it's written from a socialist perspective.
Well, Kathy, let me ask you a question. I'm talking to the caller, Kathy. What do you think we can do? Are you talking to other parents at your kids' schools? What can we do about this? Are you getting involved?
I'm telling, I teach a different subject, but I'm just telling everybody that I can that they need to educate their kids at home about what our rights are. What is the Bill of Rights? What is the Constitution? What are the amendments, especially since they're taking those out?
All right, Kathy, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, now I want to talk about rights being taken away, the National Defense Authorization Act, and some of the executive orders that have been passed just recently. We'll do that next on The Matrix.
You're in The Matrix with Chris Stevenson on 103.5 WMUZ. And now, here's Chris.
Okay, and here's an email post from Brenda Curtis. It says, The Matrix is our, Christians' way of being bold, courageous, and standing up for our faith in Jesus Christ. Why do all the squeaky wheels get the grease? Because they make the most noise. It's time that we Christians make some noise. Amen?
Amen.
All right, Danielle McLean says, 100% support the new show, The Matrix. Chris, I'll be praying for you in the show. People just don't know what they don't know sometimes. Thank you for speaking up and sharing the truth of what's really happening in our country. And it's not just our country. It's actually worldwide. And Edwin Nichols says, great show, Chris. Really looking forward to The Matrix. You touched on some things this morning I could really relate to. Thanks for the show and looking forward to more of your insight and beliefs. So let's talk about, and here's the thing. I was having a conversation at the water cooler with a sweet, sweet man who works here who shall remain nameless. And I was telling him about the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which, by the way, was passed by the president this past January, right?
December.
Okay. And I told him about some of the implications of that bill. And he said, oh, Chris, come on now. I really don't think they're doing that. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings because he's such a sweet man. So, I went to my desk in my office and I printed out the article and I circled the part of the bill that I was talking about. Yeah. And I handed it to him. And you could just see all the blood running out of his face. And he had this shocked look of dismay. And I thought, you know what? People need to know what's going on. So let me just read a part of that bill. This is the indefinite detention clause of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. It says it allows for indefinite detention of American citizens without due process at the discretion of the president. Shane, let's start with you on that.
It allows indefinite detention if they say you're an associated force or a...
Associated force with whom?
With Al-Qaeda. You're associated force or providing some type of support for Al-Qaeda. Now, these are very vague terms they use in the bill. So really anyone, they could say if you wrote something that was anti-war, for instance, or against the government policy, they could say you're siding with Al-Qaeda and come and snatch you up and then take you to a facility, to a rendition facility, which is called where they send you to another country and have you tortured, for instance. That could easily happen under the NDAA. And
wait a minute, they can torture American citizens?
They could under the NDAA, they could take you, if you say you're an associated force with a very vague terminology with Al-Qaeda, they could snatch you up and then send you to a foreign government and have you tortured. That's a very real possibility.
I saw that, but I'm trying to think like the average listener is thinking. So like, what are you talking about? That's impossible. That can't happen in the USA. God bless my America. Never here. It'll never happen. And I'm thinking, you're not keeping up with current events because it's already happened. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the word Al-Qaeda is interesting. That we created Al-Qaeda. It used to be called the Mujahideen. We used them to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. So Al-Qaeda is a creation of the United States government.
Under the leadership of who? Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, and Bill Clinton.
And our tax dollars.
Right. And currently we're using Al-Qaeda to disrupt Syria. So we're using Al-Qaeda all over the world to start these little brush wars. And it's just a continuation of the all war all the time.
And doesn't that go back to what we were talking about last week, this whole concept of problem, reaction, solution, the Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis? So you yourself create a problem from within. There's provocateurs and black ops agents who stir up the pot and create this convulsion, this contraction, because the methodology is order out of chaos, the New World Order. And so out of that chaos comes the new order, and that's why we have all of these situations popping up. All right, let me go to line number 3. This is Gail. Hi, Gail. You're in the Matrix. What's going on? Hi, Gail. Hi, you're in the Matrix. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Dennis calling. How are you folks?
Dennis, go ahead.
Hi there,
Hey,
Dennis.
hi, this is a very, very interesting discussion, and I think one of the key aspects that you've been hitting on as a theme here is the top-down approach, powerful central government, and driving the events and the people's rights and the defenders of the people's rights, the states, being abrogated. And so I'd like to ask a question of the panel here regarding NDAA and these other issues. What role can be taken at the state and local levels to fight back against things like indefinite detention and targeted killings and things of that nature?
All right, Dennis, great question. Thanks for calling. Panel, what do you think?
I think people need to get involved in their city, local politics. Try to find the individual that may understand these topics in conversation. These are not really big, gigantic seminars. You can talk to these individuals that represent you in local and city and state governments levels. If there's an area where you don't feel that there's someone there that is on your side or speaking to this, then you can run for these offices yourselves. Being involved is really the first step. Your sixth sense is being tweaked. Something's askew. Something's wrong. This government is supposed to be working for us, but we're looking around and we're seeing everything totally opposite of that. They're dictating to us who we are.
Wait a minute. You mean government of the people, for the people, by the people? Is that how it's supposed to go?
It's how it's supposed to go. But just as she was saying about the education system and the college level, attorneys alone are being they're being taught to ignore the Constitution as irrelevant. This is a very tragic trend because now you have constitutional lawyers graduating from law schools all over the country who really don't have a grasp of the original founding fathers' reason for the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and it's becoming irrelevant. In conversation, you can see what's happening with the IRS being questioned in front of Congress. They don't even want to answer the questions.
All right, let's take a phone call. This is going to be Marlis in Roseville. Hi, Marlis. You're in the Matrix. What's going on?
Hi, I just had a question. I'm listening to your show here about when you're talking about the school stuff. How does all this stuff, this curriculum, all this stuff about tracking and stuff, how does that relate to schools that are like Christian schools? Like, are they going to be under some mandations too? And then what about like homeschooling? Is that going to be like become more like illegal to become illegal to do that or something? And then how if you decide to pull your kids out of the public school, is it going to become like where you can't even take them out? All that kind of stuff I'm wondering about.
That's a great question. Kathy, what do you say?
Well, homeschooling and the Christian schools are going to have to follow this Common Core standards because all testing is going to go into the national government consortium, and kids won't be able to, they're going to have to take the government tests in order to go to college. This is basically a birth to workplace situation. And
hey, Kathy, aren't there countries in Europe right now where homeschooling is already illegal?
Yes, it is. Well,
Germany's one of them.
Germany, yeah.
There's a German, somebody that just essentially escaped from Germany because they were being prosecuted for homeschooling, and the United States is sending these people back to Germany. They're being
interesting.
And Chris, we were talking off the air, and Chris Wolf is one of our special guests on the panel today. And thanks to James Pirowich and John and Kathy Irvine, and to Shane Trejo for coming in. Appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, now, Chris, we were talking about, absolutely. We're talking about off the air just for a minute, this concept of marriage and where the marriage license came from, because it's a way for the government to stick their hands into the family unit.
Yeah, they call it a nexus, which means you're entering into a contract. And what happens is, the whole idea of church and state, the separation of church and state, that belongs to God. We're married before both families, under contract, vows. what does that have to do with me getting a license? Like so many different things, people make contracts. But that license pulls them into the court whenever there is an issue or a problem. It creates a nexus where the government has control over your kids and a stronger influence.
They have standing.
And then also the birth certificate as well.
Exactly.
So, it's just a matter of we need to be educated, know our rights, and listen to people that have been successful. Look at the tragedy of, this has also happened in Europe as well, when a family tried to get a second opinion from a doctor, they had to flee the country because they just for getting a second opinion. That's happened in this country too.
It happened in this country where they
many times
they took the child.
where they take the child, but they also threaten they'll take the other children. Now with this health care bill, with all the regulations, who has time to read through all that information and what other stipulations will be put in that? The same thing with the vaccine. You have an opt-out through Michigan, through groups like MOMS, which is called Michigan Mothers Against Mandatory Vaccination, or Michigan Against Mandatory Vaccinations. The whole idea is that regulation and authority, you don't want to enter a contract. That belongs to God. Marriage is a sacred, holy, blessed institution. Why do we want government to be, getting that the head of the camel underneath the tent?
And it's not only in America, Chris, because if you take it to a global scale, if you look at UNESCO and a lot of these United Nations organizations, basically what they're saying is the kids belong to us, and they'll supersede the laws of the United States and step in. It's happening more and more. And you just mentioned the case in California where the child was taken away because the parents wanted a second opinion about their child's health and welfare. So can you see that happening where the government is taking control of the kids?
Oh, yeah. And then the whole idea is, where does the marriage license come from? That actually was to get permission. The slaves had to get permission, and that's where the marriage license came from. We're not slaves. We are divine, created by God. Our rights come from God. And the whole idea, what Kathy was sharing about the school system, think about all the creative kids that would be just pulling their hair out thinking, I don't belong there. How many geniuses could hardly stand the
dumbed down situation?
The dumbed down situation.
But Chris,
there are different types of learners.
But Chris, they don't want to create geniuses because just look right now. Children in poor neighborhoods are being drugged with drugs like Adderall and Ritalin, even if they don't have ADHD, and they're saying it's because of social justice. They're saying that because they need they need to level the playing field because they're disadvantaged.
I got to mention this. This is an exciting testimony in Canada. This one father was able to help after the mother committed suicide because the psychotropic drugs had been changed in a 2-week period. It's a family of 10 children. The mother tragically died. Her father, who had bipolar disease, he had committed suicide 16 years earlier. The point is, this family, out of their tragedy, found a solution, miraculously answered through God, through a number of divine connections, found something that actually now today, both the son and daughter had schizophrenia, son had violent tendencies, threatened the family daily because of his bipolar disease. 17 years off all psychotropic drugs. The father was confronted several times by Health Canada because he found something, worked with the psychologist. Now they've found psychologists now are going to look at mental health differently. If you want to learn more, you can go to brainhealth.me. Just a good education of
But it's
testimonies.
not stopped those drugs from being used, especially at the school education levels. All of the mass shooters going back to Columbine have each and every one of them, whether it was a single person shooting, 10 people shooting, Sandy Hook, they were all on psychotropic drugs. They were all issued some sort of change to their drugs and or ignored by their own physicians as to the reactions for those suicidal tendencies, those violent tendencies, and they're all a result of these drugs, which are really being again given to level that playing field to control. Again, it's more control.
Well, big pharma is big business, and it's all about control. And we're going to talk about the ultimate form of control coming up next on The Matrix.
So my coworker keeps asking me questions about my faith, and I don't know what to say to her.
How do you start a conversation?
What do you do if you're married to an unbeliever?
You know, there are a lot of people who have never been reached with the gospel.
The Praise Company is now bigger and more indispensable. A full hour devoted to witness as Robin Sullivan does what she does best, help the lost meet and grow with Jesus.
I really love sharing my faith with others.
For this new added hour of the Praise Company, Robin will play songs devoted to witness. There will be conversations with special guests about how to reach the lost, how to train your child to know and stay with the Lord, how to simply start the conversation.
No matter what you say, you're still gonna have to serve somebody.
Be a light in a dark place. Be a witness.
Stick around as Robin adds a special hour to the Praise Company. The Praise Company Witness Today, 7 to 8 p.m. is part of an expanded Praise Company, only here on 103.5 FM WMUZ.
Okay, you're in the Matrix on WMUZ, and we're down to our last segment here. So I want to play a quick piece on the Verichip and cancer concerns. Listen to this.
Humans injected with a tiny chip holding the key to all of their private information.
But as you're about to see in our CBS 46 investigation, it's not fiction. In fact, it's being marketed in Georgia as life-saving technology. So why do some experts say it's potentially deadly? CBS 46's Kim Fedek investigates.
It's used in key cards, prepaid tolls, even checked luggage. It's called RFID technology, or radio frequency identification. Small chips that store information.
So here's the chip.
And now that same technology is literally available in the flesh, with chips injected right into people's arms.
It says it burns a little bit. That's about it.
Atlanta firefighter John Santola was injected with the chip about the size of a grain of rice. When scanned, the number on the chip is linked to a database with Santola's medical history.
I had to go help me in case of emergency.
Santola was chipped when Florida-based Verichip Corporation set up a booth at an Atlanta firefighter conference. They market the chip primarily for safety reasons, storing medical information for first responders, Alzheimer's patients, even children.
And it is the only product that has been approved by the FDA for this specific purpose.
The FDA approved the use of chips in humans in 2004, but since then it's caused quite a bit of controversy with some consumer groups, concerned about privacy, even health concerns.
These are very powerful tools, especially if they fall in the hands of somebody with political ambitions.
One of the loudest voices of opposition is right here in the Boston area, a Harvard doctor and author of spy chips.
These technologies will not make us safer. I think they'll make us sitting ducks for Big Brother.
Dr. Catherine Albrecht also compiled 16 years of studies she says prove the chip can cause cancerous tumors.
It's clear as day that these tumors were not only malignant, but they metastasize, they spread to the lungs, the liver, the thymus, the brain.
These pictures show the tumors growing around the actual chip in the mice and rats.
Certainly the company, I mean, they've done, I think, a tremendous job of keeping that information under wraps for the last several years.
We sat down with the chief medical officer of Verichip and asked about the link to cancer in mice.
Yeah, I am not aware. I mean, I would have to take a look at what's out there right now. I'm not aware of any issues at this point.
But weeks later, Verichip sent 26 pages of literature claiming the incidence of microchip-associated sarcoma in rodents is very low, and claims the mice in at least one of those studies were genetically engineered to be tumor-prone.
No doubt in your mind that this is safe for us medically.
Yes, I mean, from everything that I've seen, it's very superficial. It's been in the animals for 20-plus years.
John Santola won't need to worry about the cancer debate. His chip fell out after 2 days.
Would you get it again?
I would not get it again. To me, this is the future of medicine.
But how far in the future? Well, Verichip advertises the technology in use at 8 Atlanta area medical facilities, including Crawford Long Hospital, Emory University, and DeKalb Medical Center. I'm Kim Fettig, CBS 46 Investigates.
Okay, before I get your response, I want to read Revelation 13, chapter 16, and this talks about the mark of the beast. It says, He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on the right hand of their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark of the beast or the number of his name. Shane, what do you think of that?
I think that seems very prophetic nowadays with these RFID chips being injected into people. That because they would have they would be able to track you everywhere you go based upon injecting this RFID chip into your arm, and they would be able to potentially have all your currency on there. It's been talked about by these globalists that they want to have all your money stored in this chip. So that gives a chilling effect on free speech, because what if you say something wrong about the people who control?
Shut off the chip.
They shut off the chip, and then you can't buy.
Shut off your money.
Which is what the beast system is all about. Either you're with us or you're against us.
Yep.
John, what do you think of the mark of the beast? Is the Verichip it, or is it something else?
Yeah, I think the issue of cancer with these things is it's not the issue. It's the mark of the beast issue. It's the being able to turn off your life. Government would be in a situation of total control. You wouldn't have. There's no way you could be a free citizen with this.
Chris, I know you love the Lord with all your heart. What do you think? Is this the mark of the beast, or is it something different?
It seems very clear that that is the evidence that we cannot ignore. It's staring us right in the face, which means we need to be students and study as much as we can and learn as much as we can, because there's a lot at stake here. It says when good men and women do nothing, evil prevails. It also says in Revelation, be careful of pharmakia. And that's a whole nother subject.
Drugs. Exactly. Big Pharma, going back to that. Guys, we're out of time. Great show. Thanks so much for coming in. John and Kathy Irvine and Chris Wolf, James Pirowich, and Shane Trejo. Thanks for participating in the Matrix, and God bless you.
God bless you all.
God bless you. Thank you.
See you next time.
The opinions expressed on 103.5 FM WMUZ are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of Crawford Broadcasting Company or its advertisers.
WMUZ Detroit.